Welcome to an audiobook entitled Parish Management and Operations. The Buck Stops Here. Narrated by Catholic author Michael Brinda. We hope you enjoy the segment and find it useful in your ministerial work.
Chapter 68. On Applicant Claims of Prior Experience. The art of hiring or firing is also a part of the aptly named reading between the lines process. The use of the wisdom gained in your life to date, and the subjective determination that the answers you receive ring true in your gut. Yes, gut. Determining if the answers you receive align with common sense, or if the claims of the applicant seem overblown in relation to their job title, current duties, claimed years of experience, pay history, etc. For instance, when the person you are interviewing claims to have 20 years of experience doing whatever, do all of his or her answers to your questions probing his topical experience area make sense to you? Do the answers seem reasonable to you? Do all the answers hang together? Do the answers complement and build upon each other? Do the answers correlate to common sense? Do the answers in your mind equate to someone gleaning, for example, 20 years of experience doing what they say they've been doing over 20 calendar years? Or do you detect this applicant actually possesses the same 1 year of experience repeated 20 times in a row? 1 year of experience repeated 20 times in a row is not the same as claiming 20 years experience. But the interviewer has to detect this fact, and I can assure you such detection will not come from simply reading the applicant's resume. It is a rare applicant, but it is an A-player applicant characteristic who will truly report without embellishment his or her experience level, which is to say perceived to diminish the chance of being hired during an interview. And while applicants may not deliberately falsify the number of calendar years of work experience they possess, who cares solely about calendar years of experience? Do not overvalue how many calendar years of experience someone claims on their resume. You only care about the applicant's true knowledge and true skill level, his or her true level at whatever job skills you need. Do not be taken in by applicant claims of years of experience, as you will clearly note in an upcoming chapter that this parameter of prior experience is not one of our precursor ingredients to A-player hiring. Further note, it is not my intent here to globally diminish years of experience as a hiring factor. Do not use this information on the value of prior work experience outside of our present context. We are only narrowly discussing herein the art of hiring for PMO employment purposes. We are not hiring biologists, police detectives, surgeons, etc., where prior experience carries a different weight in an applicant interview process. This point is paramount. Note, no amount of traditional book reading, study, hiring software, analytical tools, etc., in other words, the science of PMO interviewing, is going to definitively give you the ability to discern fact from fiction, truth from half-truth, in the answers given by an applicant during the hiring process. All you have now, and all you ever will have, is your applied wisdom, a wisdom that does not grow necessarily simply by the passage of time. The mere passage of chronological time does not in and of itself convey experience and wisdom. We all know people who are no wiser today than they were a decade or more ago, but they will make nonsensical claims to having more experience solely based on the passage of time. Therefore, a key ingredient to the art of hiring is to also note the passage of calendar time leading to the applicant's claim of experience guarantees nothing in relation to actually owning the claimed experience in a particular craft or profession. Further note this point is as true for the applicant as it is for the interviewer. During any interview, you must not be taken in by the applicant's claims of calendar years of experience. Not only this, you should never pay a wage premium for such resume claims unless and until the claimed level of experience can be demonstrated and verified to your satisfaction during the interview. Even then, in most cases in PMO, there is no need to pay a premium for prior experience. More on this critical point follows. If you request letters of recommendation that speak to an applicant's character, fine. But letters of recommendation that speak to an applicant's experience are to be considered as secondary sources of endorsement, not primary sources. What is the primary source of endorsement as it relates to experience? Only what you or the persons you delegate to actually discern and detect during the interview when you probe the applicant's claims related to his or her prior level of topical knowledge. Why? One of the most common hiring mistakes made is to rely at face value on an applicant's stated claims about level of experience, and then subsequently pay in salary or hourly wages for experience that in fact does not exist anywhere except as phantom claims in a resume and in the mental dream world of the applicant. As such, note it is incumbent upon the person conducting the interview to discern if the number of calendar years of claimed experience is actually reflected during the interview. Chapter 69. Ask for interviewing help when you need help. To the extent you have little to no knowledge of how a particular PMO job is performed, how could you possibly determine much, if anything, about an applicant's level of true experience? Let us be very clear here. You have little to no chance of applying the art of this portion of the interview process if you do not have a firm grasp on how the job you are interviewing to fill should be conducted. This point is paramount. However, insofar as it is not possible or reasonable to expect you to know the detailed ins and outs of every PMO position that reports to you, clearly you can see that to successfully conduct such A-player search interviews, you must enlist the help of someone who does indeed know the operational details, the practice science of the position you are trying to fill, in other words, and just as importantly, also what defines an A-player in the first place for this position. As such, the technical portion of an A-player search interview can and should, whenever necessary, be delegated to someone more technical in that field than the PMO administrator, but who is also read in and attuned to both A-player defining characteristics and your PMO culture. Clearly, you can see if this interview assistance comes from someone you hired who has already been with you for some years. You have, by definition, built yourself an A-player on your PMO team who lives the correct culture on the job and can now help you interview, or they would no longer be employed. And you can just as clearly see there is no sense seeking interviewing help from any of your remaining B, C, D, or F players. Whether you conduct a portion of the interview or the entire interview, you must listen very closely to the answers you receive, because at any point applicants may step on the figurative landmine and expose themselves as either unqualified or they overstated their true level of knowledge and experience. And remember this well. Most PMO applicants are unqualified for the position they are seeking when the filter we select for hiring is our A-player filter. Does this sound depressing to you? Well, this is just how it is. This is the reality of any job applicant pool when seeking A players only. People have a natural tendency and desire to advance their careers. When an employee reaches the employment ceiling where they currently work, some will naturally look for upward advancement somewhere else, potentially at your expense. Just because someone is seeking upward advancement does not at all mean this person is upwardly qualified for such advancement. It could simply mean he or she leased a new car and without a pay raise is drowning financially. Maybe the rent was increased. Who knows? There are as many reasons someone is looking to change jobs as there are people looking to change jobs, and none of these ulterior motives endorses them as A players, nor are their personal problems your problems to solve. Type, duration, depth, and relevancy of prior work experience are the most commonly exaggerated points on an applicant resume, and you should by now clearly see that not only is it incumbent upon the interviewers to test all such claims of knowledge and experience, but also realize you have no chance to test such claims if you are not an A player yourself or know little to nothing about the job you are interviewing. This is why it becomes paramount to split the interview and ensure someone read into what constitutes an A player profile for this position from a practitioner and technical perspective is helping you to detect if such claimed prior knowledge and experience is actually present within each applicant. When in doubt, always reach out for interviewing help. Chapter 70. The Prior Work Experience Trap. While it is important that the PMO administrator know the actual, not just the claimed, level of knowledge and prior experience in each applicant, level of knowledge and prior experience are not the most important parameters you are seeking. Now there is a provocative but extremely insightful statement. Why is this? Is it important to know the level of actual knowledge and experience in an applicant? Absolutely. Why? For the purposes of establishing precise starting pay within the available pay range. We also want to know the actual knowledge and experience in an applicant so that we have some framework for setting our expectations for a learning curve and daily job performance. Clearly, logically, intuitively, we know one thing for sure. The more prior experience a person has doing the job I am hiring him to do, the quicker he will be up to speed and the better he will be able to do the job in question. Right? No. Not right. Wrong. Wrong, wrong, and more wrong. To accept as an interviewing and hiring truism that actual, proven, verified prior job experience performing any PMO-related task necessarily translates into quicker learning or better job performance under your direction in PMO is a trap and the worst assumption an employer can make about an applicant. Why? A quote from Paul, chapter 11, Romans, chapter 11, verse 19. Indeed, you will say, branches were broken off so that I might be grafted in. We know every enterprise has an organizational culture. The culture may be good, bad, right, wrong, superior, mediocre, or somewhere in between. But every enterprise has a culture, and as you have already learned and listened, it is the culture of an enterprise that animates and shapes all actions by the personnel in that enterprise. PMO is no exception to this truth. We don't know the applicant's prior work environment culture, but we do know our culture. Thus, when you hire someone into PMO, and it does not matter what position on the org chart, whomever you hire is told they are grafting into your existing culture. We are not grafting our PMO culture into the applicant's culture as shaped by overvalued prior experience. This point is not only paramount. If you remember to establish this point during the interview process, you will not have to work to establish this point after hiring someone. This critical notion that in PMO your prevailing culture will guide this person will have already been explained, understood, and acknowledged by the applicant before he or she ever receives a job offer. Indeed, any job offer is by definition contingent upon the applicant verbally acknowledging he or she understands this point during the interview before a job offer is ever made. But I cannot overstress how much easier your life will be as the PMO administrator if this point is made clear during the interview process and before any job offer is made, rather than after the fact. As such, what relevant piece of PMO organizational culture is further developed and maintained during the hiring process? Precisely this. We exalt two characteristics when interviewing any applicant for any PMO position, and neither of those two characteristics has anything to do with prior work experience. Oh. The fact is, and only the wisest applicants will realize the following counterintuitive truth in advance of their interview. For applicant interviewers seeking A players, prior work experience is at best neutral in weight, but in all likelihood a detriment to the applicant's chances of being hired. Say what? Prior work experience is a detriment? How so? Why? Because standing alone without the two ingredients that will be explained below, prior work experience is something that often falls into the negative category and actually lowers the desirability ranking of an applicant. Why? How is this possible? How does the notion of prior experience work against the applicant? Let us start here. Imagine you want to hire someone for the PMO position of your choice. The rookie interviewer mistakenly leans on finding the most prior work experience they can to define what they consider to be the best applicant. Why is this? First, not having really put much thought into all the consequences of overranking the value of prior experience, the interviewer simply assumes that is what you do, that this is the logical and correct approach to hiring, the everybody does it this way school of non-thought. Secondly, the interviewer intuits incorrectly that hiring someone with prior experience in the field will shorten, if not eliminate, the need for training this new employee or volunteer. After all, this person does have prior experience, and I did offer to pay the going rate, if not a premium for the prior experience. Obviously, I must want to hire someone with prior experience and pay accordingly for a reason. And what might that reason be? Not what you think, I can tell you that. What will happen in most such cases where prior experience is one of the most exalted hiring parameters during an interview? Precisely this. You have just hired and catastrophically unleashed this applicant into the PMO culture that you worked so hard to build without this person's understanding and buy-in into the current culture. Oh, that doesn't sound very good. In fact, it gets worse. Such an applicant, by virtue of the fact you no doubt informed him or her you are not only impressed by their prior experience, but indeed you were swayed enough by it to offer them the job because of it, quite naturally, we assume upon their first day at work and every day thereafter that they were hired to imbue your PMO with their knowledge, their ways, their means, such that everything that they do becomes the standard bearer of your culture and operations. The reality? Nothing could be further from the truth. Such thinking is a disaster in the making. The last thing I want is an outsider unleashing an almighty prior experience gorilla into my PMO culture, a culture I worked so hard to create and worked so diligently to maintain. Why in the world would I want to hire and unleash people in PMO to operate their way animated by their views on what prior experience means, when by definition I already have a way I want the job to be done, which I hired them to do, and I intend to train them into our culture rather than allow current PMO personnel to be assimilated into their culture. In this light, prior work experience should be viewed for what it really is. Code talk between applicant and interviewer for, if you hire me, I'll come in and use my prior experience to solve your problems. I'll rescue you. After all, if you are valuing my prior work experience, you are telling me that you not only want to hire me because of that prior experience, but you want me to apply that prior experience on the job. No. Prior experience often actually becomes baggage that must be shed by the applicant. Otherwise, if this baggage is not shed, one of two things will happen. Number one, in a short time your new hire will pollute your culture, or, number two, you will have to fire this person. What do you want in a job applicant? Keep listening.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.